Good morning and welcome to the NAHL Group PLC AGM Proceedings 2022. Throughout this recorded presentation, meeting attendees will be in listen-only mode. As stated in the notice of AGM, shareholders are invited to submit any questions to the company in advance of today's meeting. Therefore, the company will not be taking any further questions from those online. I'd now like to hand you over to Tim Aspinall, Non-Executive Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to the 2022 Annual General Meeting of NAHL Group PLC. I'm Tim Aspinall, Chair of the Board, and with me today are James Soralis on my right, who's CEO of the company, Chris Hyam on my far left, who's Group CFO, Sally Tillery on my immediate left, who's Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, and Brian Phillips on the right, who's another non-exec director. Unfortunately, Gillian Kent can't be with us in person today. She's Chair of the Remuneration Committee as she has COVID, but she's dialed in online. A quorum's present, and so I formally declare this meeting to be open. Anyone joining via the Investor Meet Company platforms reminded that they are able to observe proceedings only and are not able to vote, ask questions, or otherwise participate in the meeting. The notice calling this meeting was dispatched to all members on the 10th of May, and accordingly, the requisite notice has been given. I'm going to take the notice as read, and you may wish to follow the proceedings of the meeting by referring to that notice. Before we turn to the formal business set out in the notice, I'd like to draw your attention to the trading update that the company issued this morning as an RNS on the LSE and also on our website. And James is going to read out the update for the meeting. James.
Thank you, Tim. Since the publication of the 2021 final results on 29th of March 2022, the group has continued to perform in line with market expectations. In the first 5 months of the year, the group's Consumer Legal Services division generated 34% more personal injury inquiries than the equivalent period last year, in a claims market that remains subdued following the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the introduction of the Civil Liability Act reforms last year. In line with this strategy, the group continues to grow and invest in its fully integrated law firm, National Accident Law, or NAL. 26% of total inquiries were distributed to NAL in the period, representing an increase in the number of inquiries allocated to NAL of 95% compared to the equivalent period last year. In addition to growing the value of its book of ongoing claims, NAL also collected 21% more cash from settlements in the period compared to the prior year. Earlier this month, National Accident Helpline launched a new TV advertising campaign intended to further strengthen its brand position and contribute to volume growth. In the critical care division, Bush & Co has made encouraging progress following the effects of the pandemic. The number of initial needs assessments, or INAs, completed and expert witness reports issued to customers in the period increased by 10% and 9% respectively compared to last year. And the number of instructions for INAs and expert witness reports was up 20% and 13% respectively. The board is pleased to report that investment in marketing and business development continues to deliver a strong pipeline of work. Overall, the board's expectation for the full year remains unchanged, and the group will provide a trading update for the 6 months to 30 June 2022 on the 1st of August 2022.
Thanks very much, James. Now we're going to move on to the formal business of the meeting. An explanatory note on each of the 8 resolutions to be voted on today is given in the notice of the meeting. So I don't propose explaining all the resolutions in detail, but you will, as we get to them, see them on the PowerPoint presentation on the screen. The first 5 resolutions are proposed as ordinary resolutions, so require a simple majority of votes cast in favour in order to be passed. Resolutions 6 to 8 are proposed as special resolutions, so require a majority of 75% of votes cast in favour to be passed. As set out in the notice, it was strongly recommended that shareholders submitted their proxy votes electronically or appointed me, the chairman of the meeting, as their proxy to vote on their behalf. For the information of those watching online, I've been informed by Link Asset Services that over 99% of votes cast prior to the meeting were in favour of all the resolutions. Voting today will be done by a show of hands of those in attendance. In line with company law and the company's constitution, I attend as a proxy for a number of shareholders. and I've been appointed by different shareholders to vote in different ways on a resolution. So I will have one vote for the resolution and one vote against that resolution. So we're now going to proceed to vote on the resolutions, which I will formally put to the meeting. So I now propose resolution 1, which is to receive the annual report and accounts of the company and the auditor's report on those reports and accounts for the year ended 31st December 2021. Please raise your hands to vote. So all those in favour? All those against? I declare the resolution carried. I now propose resolution 2. This is to approve the director's remuneration report, which can be found on pages 67 to 72 in the annual report and accounts. Please raise your hands to vote. So first of all, those in favour and those against. I declare the resolution carried. I now propose resolution 3. This is to reappoint our external auditors, Mazars LLP, to hold office from the conclusion of this meeting until the conclusion of the next annual general meeting. Please raise your hands to vote. So those in favour and those against. I declare that resolution carried. I now propose resolution 4. This is to authorise the directors to determine the remuneration of the auditors of the company. So again, please raise your hands to vote. So those in favour and those against. I declare that resolution carried. I now propose resolution 5. This deals with the renewal of the directors' authority to allot shares in line with institutional shareholder guidance. Again, please raise your hands to vote. So those in favour and those against. I declare that resolution carried. I now propose resolution 6, which is to renew the directors' annual authority to allot shares in the company for cash without making an offer to shareholders. Again, please raise your hands to vote. So those in favour and those against. I declare that resolution carried. So we move on to resolution 7, which I'm now proposing, and that relates to a further disapplication of statutory preemption rights, in addition to that proposed to be granted by resolution 6, to be used only for the purpose of refinancing or financing transactions which the directors determine in each case to be an acquisition or a specified capital investment. Please raise your hands to vote. So those in favour and those against. I declare that resolution carried. So now we come to resolution 8, which is the last one. I propose that one, which is to renew the authority of the company to purchase its own shares. So please raise your hands to vote. Those in favour and those against. I declare that resolution carried. So that brings to an end the formal business of the AGM, and the final results of the voting will be published via an RNS later today. We'll also publish the results on our website. So I'm going to move on now to questions that have been submitted by shareholders prior to the meeting. James, I think you've received a question, so do you want to just read that out?
Yes, thank you, Tim. We've had some questions in from one shareholder around non-exec shareholdings in the company and composition of the board. Tim, as chair of the board of directors, would you like to comment on those topics?
Yeah, so we adopt the QCA Corporate Governance Code, and we have a good blend of skills, sector knowledge, and a broad range of experience among the directors. It's important, of course, that the non-executive directors are independent, so they can remain objective in relation to the board's deliberations and play a valuable role in providing oversight and constructive challenge to the executive management. There's no obligation on non-executive directors to hold shares, and a material shareholding could compromise their independence. We put the 2020 remuneration policy, after taking advice on it, to an advisory vote at the AGM last year, where it was approved. Unless there are any material changes, we'll continue to follow that policy, and we'll review it again next year as part of our 3-year cycle.
Thank you, Tim. There are no further questions.
Good. Well, in that case, that concludes the NAHL Group PLC 2022 Annual General Meeting. To our shareholders, on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for your continued support. And goodbye from all of us here.
Thank you indeed for updating attendees today. Could I please ask attendees not to close the session, as you now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order the board can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I'm sure is greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the board of NAHL Group PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's annual general meeting proceedings. Thank you and good morning to you all.